Hello again, everyone. This is Ed Lynch from Surfing Baseball with Ed Lynch. And today we have a very, very special guest who deserves an introduction all his own, and that is Mr. Pete Rose, one of the greatest ball player that's ever lived. He's the all-time leader in at-bats, plate appearances, hits, as we all know, and he's second all-time in doubles. He had an incredible career. The Hall of Fame issues are out there. I asked Pete about it. I really didn't want to delve into it too much. It was really more a celebration of his career, his productivity, and most of all, his durability. For 21 years, this man took the field just about every day and put up league-leading numbers in hits, on-base percentage, runs scored. Just an incredible career, played on some great teams. And I'm proud to have Pete as a very special guest. So sit back and enjoy. Thank you. Hello again, everybody. This is Ed Lynch on Surfing Baseball. My special guest today is Pete Rose. Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. I apologize about the technical problems we've had. I really appreciate your patience. And, I know you've been talking a lot in your career about the number of hits you got, number of doubles. But the thing that amazes me, and being in the industry 40 years like I was,
right,
and having some pretty good teammates, and being a general manager,
right,
and there's nothing more important for me, other than performance, obviously, but guys that you can count on to post up every day.
Yeah.
And I find it absolutely amazing for that 21-year period, the number of games you played. And, I know you didn't play 140 games in 64. I think you had military service. And in 81, we had the players' strike that I went through my rookie year.
Right.
What drove you to play every single day, Pete?
That was my job. I mean, just respect to the players, respect to the fans. Plus, I took care of myself. I didn't go to the ballpark drunk. I didn't go to the ballpark tired. I was like the rest of us. I mean, I went out on the road and had fun, but I still got my sleep. You got to make adjustments in life, especially as a baseball player on the road, because you're away from your family, you're away from your home and things like that. So you can be led astray. I saw a lot of guys come up after me, Ed, and they left before me, but they had a hell of a time. They had a great time, but they just didn't get to have the longevity. When I talk about having 14,000 official at bats, playing at 3,500 games, and the biggest stat I have, and I have 15 major league records. The best record I got, Ed, that very few people talk about, I played 1,972 winning games.
That's amazing.
Think about that.
That is absolutely incredible.
That's almost 100 a year. But what did that create? That created a winning atmosphere for me as a player. Because when I went to spring training, I expected to win. Sure, if you win 100 games, you're still going to lose 62. And that's the way I looked at it. So winning games that's what it was all about. And Bench was the same. Perez was the same. Morgan was the same. We all felt that way. That's why we had when you got a team and you develop a name, and our name was the Big Red Machine. You're a good team, the Whiz Kids, the Gas House Gang. When you're on a team that they create a nickname for you, that's a good situation. That's a
absolutely. And I've talked to 3 of your former teammates. They all told me to say hello. And you played with each of these guys on a different team. The first one was Joel Youngblood in Cincinnati. He idolizes you, and I can see why. Bobby Dernier in Philadelphia, and Terry Francona in Montreal. Terry told me to say hello to you, and he said he apologizes for sucking when he played for you when you were a manager.
Yeah.
But they all said the same.
That was a mistake. I don't know who made that mistake, Eddie, but when I went to Montreal, okay, I come off of 5 really good years at first base with the Phillies. And somehow along the line, when I got to Montreal, Bill Verdon was a nice guy. He wanted to put me in left field and put Francona at first base. And that's why I didn't do as well in Montreal as I did other places. Because I thought I was a real good first baseman. Now all of a sudden I'm in an easier position in left field, but that's just the way it was. And I enjoy it. Doesn't matter where I played. I had fun playing, and I worked on my defense. I don't think I ever got the credit for playing first base like I did in Philadelphia.
Well, I saw
I
you play
really,
over there a lot, and I
yeah.
thought you were outstanding.
Well, when you got Trio and Boa and Schmidt throwing the ball across the diamond to you, how difficult a job can it be?
Well, the two things those guys all said about you was you played hard and you played to win. Now, a lot of guys play hard. I played with and I had guys on my roster that played hard, but they played stupid. They did,
Yeah.
they get thrown out trying to take an extra base in a situation where they shouldn't, or they overran balls in the outfield, or they try to throw somebody out to plate and the runner would just stroll into second base, stupid stuff like that. So
Eddie, when I was a little league player, okay, and I don't because of my dad or whoever was coaching me, I was a very sound fundamental player, and my dad always told me that, hey, errors are part of the game, but mental errors are not part of the game.
absolutely.
And I didn't make.
Oh shit.
I always knew the score of the game. I always knew where we were playing. I always knew who was going to be warming up. Those are little things that, for 2.5 hours of every day of my life, I was involved in the game. Not after the game, not before the game, but during the game. And that's the mindset that you got to have if you're going to be a good, complete player.
And there's a lot of feeling, and I see this in baseball today.
Uh-huh.
If you take the top, say, high school player
right
in the country, they play their high school season, and then they go on this tour of these exhibition events. They'll play in the Aflac All-Star game, and when they're up at the plate and it's a tie score and it's the bottom of the eighth inning and there's a man on second with nobody out, the last thing that kid is thinking to do is to move that runner over. He's looking to hit a ball out in the street, so to move up in the draft or get that scholarship. And
you're right.
I personally feel like they don't play the game enough to win. It's a game, and to win is the most important thing. And that's why I think the highest compliment that anybody could give a player is what those three guys said about you. You played to win the game. And I did ask them, did they ever see you come into the clubhouse after the team won and you went 0 for 4 where you were pouting or pissed off? And they said, never. Not only did you never do it, but you wouldn't tolerate it.
Eddie, I made 10,000 outs. I'd have been doing a lot of. If I was mad every time I made an out, I'd been mad my whole damn life. Well, not quite.
Another thing they said too
I didn't quite make 10,000. I made 9,800 outs. You ever thought you'd have somebody on your show that made almost 10,000 outs?
No, I never did. And Babe Ruth's dead. But the last thing they said about you was, and I see this a lot, and I'll use the analogy of a number one starting pitcher. People will say, geez, what's so great about having a number one starter? He only pitches once every 5 days. And for me, it shows all the other guys, the other starters, what's possible. Yeah. Geez, I could never get that guy out, and you just got him out 4 times. It's possible. I can strive towards that excellence, and they make other pitchers better. Right. And that's what guys said about you, Pete. Not only did you play smart and you played hard, you played to win, but the guys around you got better, and they all cited, especially Bobby Dernier cited, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I looked at the numbers, and it seems to be true, and I've heard this from other people, that when you joined the Phillies, you made Mike Schmidt a better player.
Yeah. Well, I think what I did for him, Eddie, is when I played against Mike Schmidt, or when I went to the Phillies, he was the best player in the league 5 days a week. And after he played with me for a year, he became the best player in the league 7 days a week. Because I made him understand that, Mike, you're not going to hit home runs every day or every other day. You can win games with your glove. You can win games with your base running. You can win games with your leadership abilities. And that's what he did. That's why Mike Schmidt was, if not one of the greatest players I ever played with. And I played with 12 Hall of Fame players. I played with a Hall of Famer at every position on the field.
That's
I can name them real quick. Bench, Schmidt, Larkin, Morgan, Perez, uh, Frank Robinson, Andre Dawson, Tim Raines, Tom Seaver, right-hand pitcher, Steve Carlton, left-hand pitcher. Those are the type of guys I hung around with.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible.
So the game was fun.
Yeah,
Eddie,
it was.
you know yourself, when the game is fun, you don't mind getting there early and you don't mind staying late. Okay? And when we used to have an off season, it was boring, man. It was boring just to know that the season's almost over and I got to go through a whole off season coming in third or fourth place. That was depressing to me. And I didn't let that happen very often, but still, even though you're a good player and you got a good team, you're going to have off seasons. We didn't have a lot of them, but we were very competitive. You know, Bench was competitive. Morgan was competitive. Tony Perez was competitive. Sparky was competitive. You know, he was our leader. And we all believed the same thing. Go out there every day, put the uniform on, bust your ass, and win the game. And if you don't, come back the next night and do the same thing. That's the great thing about baseball, Eddie, as you know. You can be a goat on Monday and Tuesday and a hero on Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, you had some tough postseasons too. I mean, I remember I was 14 years old, and you guys came into the 1970 World Series,
right?
Heavily favored, if I remember that correctly. Now, the Orioles obviously were a great team. They'd lost the year before to the Mets.
We had some injuries in that series, though.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the only game we won was a game that Clay Carroll started, and he was our bullpen expert. Because the other guys on the team, the rotation was hurt.
Oh,
But
I didn't know that.
We lost that series in 5 games. But that was my first bout with the World Series, 70. Then we come right back in 72 and lost to the Mets.
No, the A's.
A's. And then in 73, we lost to the Mets in the playoffs.
Yes, I
Then
remember
in
that.
75, we start winning the World Series as we did in 76 when we swept the Yankees. And as we did in 1980 when we got in with Baltimore for beating me in 1970.
Yeah, well, 70. How exciting was that 75 series with Boston? I mean, I always remember the quote after Fisk hit the home run.
Yeah.
Sparky Anderson said he came in the clubhouse and you said to him, "Isn't this great baseball?" And he said to you, "Peter Edward Rose, are you out of your mind?"
Yeah, I said, "Don't worry, Spark. We got him right where we want him." And Carlton Fisk hit that damn ball over my head, but unfortunately, it went over George Foster's head too.
Yes, it did. And
but
in
I remember I
76,
come to bat the half inning before that, and I looked back at Carlton Fisk and I said, "Carlton, is this the greatest? Are you having the most fun you ever had in your life?" Because I watched that game there and on TV, Ed. That was the number one game in the history of baseball in the World Series. That Game 6 of the '75 World Series.
absolutely. I mean, the movie Good Will Hunting, they talk about it. They show highlights of it. It's been in movies. It's been in plays. I was in college. That's when I think, fell in love with baseball. And Louis Tiant he was tough in that series.
Yeah.
Well, how did you do off him in that series?
I did all right. But one thing about Louis, if you got your eye on the ball, which you're supposed to have from the release point as a pitcher, you know what I'm talking about. I don't worry about him juggling his head and doing all that twisting. You know, when I batted against Leo Tiant, his head could have fell off and rolled into home, and I wouldn't have knew it. I'm not watching his head. I'm trying to watch the release point where he's releasing the ball.
So as he's winding up, are you looking at a spot over his right shoulder for where he's eventually going to release the ball? Or are you following his hand up?
Everybody's different, Ed. Just like if I was facing you, I try to find out where your release point is. That's why guys who throw it out of their jersey are sometimes hard to pick up or hard to hit. You know, guys who kind of hide the ball. Those are guys when you got to over concentrate when you're in the batter's box. It's not as easy as it sounds. But most guys right up over the top. I love guys who were right up over the top. It was like hitting off of one of those one-armed bandits at the batting cage.
Yeah, the Iron Mike.
Yeah, Iron Mike. That's correct.
Yeah. So in 76, you went in there and just blew the Yankees out in 4. That was really the icing on the cake for the Big Red Machine to certainly be one of the greatest teams in the the 20th century. Right, you're right there with the 27 Yankees and the and eventually the 84 Tigers and the 98 Yankees, whatever. I mean, your team was right there. How satisfying was that to sweep the Yankees in the media capital of the world?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, Ed, I loved it because we won, but I didn't like it because anytime you sweep a series, it's like watching a Super Bowl, Ed, and it scores 45-0.
Yeah.
Why are you going to watch it? And we swept the Yankees, so it wasn't a good show for baseball, the game of baseball. The World Series is the fall classic. I wish every World Series or every playoff would go 5 games, if that's what it was, or 7 games, because that creates pressure for the athletes, and it creates entertainment for the fans.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sweep nobody. I didn't want to. We swept the Phillies and the Yankees that year. We only played 7 games in both playoffs.
That's amazing. So when you went to Philly in '79,
Yep.
I remember thinking that was my first year in AAA, and I remember thinking, boy, the amount of pressure that Pete Rose has got to be under, because everybody's writing the final piece. They're going to win. They got Pete now, and when you walked into that clubhouse, what did you see? What that was different than the Big Red Machine? Was it?
Yeah.
Was it like what you talked about with Mike?
Yeah.
That 5 days a week they were really good.
The difference in the Phillies and the Reds, okay, you know as well as I do, both teams had great players.
Yes.
Okay, but the Phillies' problem was, Ed, they didn't have a team leader. Schmidt wasn't going to look up to Boone. Boone wasn't going to look up to Maddox. Boa wasn't going to look up to McBride. They were all good players. Now, all of a sudden, you get a guy comes in there named me with over 3,000 hits. And I didn't go in there and say, okay, guys, I'm your team leader. I'm here. And they saw me play for a year. We didn't win the first year. I had a great year in '79. But we won the second year in 1980 because it took a whole season for those guys to get used to, hey, this guy plays the same way every damn day. Because all they knew about me is what they saw 12 times a year. That's how many times the Reds played the Phillies. And I chose the Phillies because of Schmidt, because of Boa, because of Lazinski. I mean, because I used to take those guys out to eat when they come into Cincinnati because they were good players and a good team. But they were all about the same age. They all come up through the Philly organization with the difference of McBride because he was with the Cardinals early in his career. But Boa and Maddox, Schmidt, and those guys all came up through the Philly organization. Now I got Dallas Green, who came up through the Philly organization. And now I'm a Cincinnati Red guy from my whole career, 16 years. Now I'm a Philly. And it was fun to be a Philly because first of all, it was a great city to play in, great fans. And secondly, because of the personnel we had.
Absolutely. And winning that was the first World Series they ever won. Yeah. People don't know that. I mean, I remember I said that to Dallas. He goes, damn right.
86 years it took the Phillies.
86 years it took Pete Rose to win the World Series.
Yeah. I'll never forget that parade. We had 1 million people in the streets from downtown on the floats out to JFK where they played the Army-Navy game right across from the vet. And there was 1 million people in the streets, and there was 65 or 70,000 at the stadium waiting for us to come in.
That's amazing. Hey, Pete, I want to talk a little bit about the way the game is played now in terms of, the last thing I want this podcast to be is, I'm a dinosaur. Everybody now is dumb. We had all the answers. That's the last thing. Because one thing I think we all have in common, we love the game of baseball.
Yeah.
But we do have the right to question some of the things that are happening. You're around the game 60 years. I was around 40 years, whatever. But I always felt like a lineup was a strategic tool to use to score runs. Like your leadoff hitter had a role. Right. Your number 2 hitter developed skills to fill that role, move the ball to the right side, move the guys over. The 3-hole hitter, 4, 5, 6, everybody had a role. And when they played in that spot in the lineup, they knew what their job was in terms of moving runners along. Now, when I look at people ask me who's the best offensive team in the league, I go right to runs scored. Everything else is just eyewash. I don't give a shit if you lead the league in home runs. If you're not leading the league in runs scored, To me, you're not the best offensive team.
Right.
So I remember watching Bryce Harper, and I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit here. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But I remember in a 4-game series, I saw him hit first, second, fifth, and I think sixth in the same series. I mean, so what happens when that happens, and correct me if I'm wrong, you just go up there and you're hitting. It's like, well, I'm hitting 6 today, leading on. Yeah. There's no role here. I'm just going to try to hit the ball as hard as I can or as far as I can without trying to build some sort of attack to score runs. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. There's a place in the order for everybody. How would you like to been on the Reds and hit after me and Morgan? That's where Perez and Bench and Foster came in.
Absolutely.
That's why they were such run producer. When you got a guy like Joe Morgan and Pete Rose hitting in front of you, how many times is a pitcher going to be in a stretch?
Absolutely.
I mean, I never hit. I played 3,500 games, Eddie, and I never hit below third in my career.
You never did, huh?
One year, Dave Bristol hit me third against left-handers. Every other year, I hit first, batting left-handed.
That's amazing.
Never hit fourth, never hit fifth, never hit sixth, never hit eighth. Always hit first or second and third one year, batting right-handed.
Yeah. And, we got to talk about what you've heard and what I've heard on teaching hitting now. Yeah. And some of the people who are, quote unquote, teaching guys how to hit. Now, there's exceptions to every rule.
Right.
And some of the best baseball people I've ever worked with upstairs never played.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't think that was a prerequisite
Yeah.
for being a great administrator, great general manager.
Yeah.
But I wonder if I'm a hitter and it's July and I'm struggling. I'm coming off a 1 for 15. My thumbs are hurting. I'm going out facing a top starting pitcher, Ohtani, somebody like that. And I'm looking for advice from a guy that's never had an at-bat in professional baseball. I just don't see what he could tell me. Because if a guy had, 5,000 at-bats in the big leagues, he might say, hey, listen, I know you're struggling. This guy's got good stuff. Try to build an at-bat. If you get a fastball first pitch, hey, jump on it.
Yeah.
But try to build an at-bat. Try to stay back. Try to, the fundamental things you do when you're really struggling. Do you agree with that statement at all?
I do. I agree with you 100%. And it's just like in today's baseball, Ed. Tell me, give me a name of a good hitting coach in the big leagues.
I don't know many of them, and I can't.
Well, how can you be a hitting coach if you never hit? I mean, I don't want my hitting coach to hit 265 in AAA baseball. I want a guy to hit 365 because he knows what the hell he's doing when he's in the batter's box. I had a batting coach that I think was the best batting coach ever, and his name was Ted Kwaszewski, and he was a home run hitter, but a 300 hitter. Okay, and he always talked about attacking the ball. He always talked about being aggressive, and that's how I talk about when I talk to kids today about playing baseball and hitting baseball. Get in the batter's box, see the freaking ball, and hit the freaking ball hard somewhere. Okay? Yeah. Watch your pitcher warm up if you've never seen him before. He'll tell you what he's got when he's down that bullpen warming up.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a guest hitter. And he's down there throwing fastballs and sliders for 30 minutes. Don't go in the game looking for a change up and a curveball because he's either going to throw you a fastball or a slider. And if it was me, I'd look for his fastball. I can adjust to everything else. Hitting is not that difficult. However, Eddie, think about this. You can become a Hall of Famer, a successful guy in baseball, by making 7 out of 10 outs.
That's right.
That's a 300 batting average.
And I've seen some pretty good players who could not deal with failure. I mean, they go 0 for 4 and they're ready to jump out the window at the hotel.
Occupation, Ed. If the quarterbacks in today's football complete 3 out of 10, they're not playing quarterback. if basketball players, if Michael Jordan shot 3 out of 10, we're not buying his shoes.
That's right.
Okay. Now, if Mickey Mantle hit 3 out of 10, we want to use a Mickey Mantle bat.
Absolutely.
And it's just the way it is. Like I told you earlier in the program, I almost made 10,000 outs, and you're giving me 30 or 40 minutes of your time.
That's right.
That's a lot of freaking outs, Ed.
Well, I can tell from talking to you, I never played with you, and I wish I had, but I can tell you're one tough son of a bitch, and you got to be tough. You got to be tough to make 70% outs, or get the bat shoved up your ass, and now the next day you're out there trying to do it again. I mean, you've got to be tough.
Like I told you a minute ago, I played in 3,554 games. I've been at officially 14,000 or something. I had 1,500 walks, and I hit 303. And what's the goal? 300. So I hit 3 percentage points over my goal of 300. Think about that. And that was hard. That was difficult. But it's better than hitting 200. It's better than hitting 250. I mean, you could count on me getting 3 out of 10. That's pretty good, 3 out of 10.
Absolutely.
Last year there was nobody in one league and 4 guys in the other league in baseball that hit 300 or better. 4 guys in all baseball hit 300 last year. Think about that. And
you said something earlier, Pete. You said something earlier that the guys you struggled with are the guys you've not seen before.
I didn't know what they threw.
Do you think it's tougher now when starting pitchers are averaging right around 5 innings per start?
No.
And the way they have this merry-go-round of relievers coming up, you're going to face nowadays, like when you went out there and faced Gibson and Fergie and Juan Marichal, you might face two pitchers or 3 at most in the 9 innings you face those guys, usually 1. And now the guys are facing 3 or 4 pitchers every game.
Ed, when the Big Red Machine used to play a game and we were facing a pitcher that never been out there before, I used to tell Bench and Morgan and Perez and those guys, get in the dugout when I'm leading off, because I'm going to try to make the pitcher work and let him show us what he throws. In other words, I didn't go up there and swing at the first damn pitch and hit an out. Now the next time up, I don't know what the guy throws. Exactly. So I tried to work the count the first time up to benefit my teammates.
Absolutely. And that's one of the major roles of
the game. That's the way you had to approach the game.
That's one of the major jobs of a leadoff guy.
Yeah.
And Pete, I can't tell you, I scouted 16 years after I was a general manager. And I'm talking about being behind home plate and writing reports and watching very closely. And I can't tell you how many times, the flip side of that is, how many times I saw the starting pitcher throw every pitch he had to the leadoff hitter.
Right.
When I came to the big leagues, my first manager, Joe Torre, said, throw fastballs low and away until you got to throw something else. And that was great advice, because second time through, I'd mix it up. And then the third time through, it's all situations. If it's 10-0, you're throwing fastballs down the middle. If it's 2-1, you're working the count pretty hard. But I just see pitchers now, they say they can't go through the lineup 3 times. Well, they're showing the leadoff guy in the game every pitch they have. Of course, they're not going to go through the lineup 3 times, and they're throwing with maximum effort, which means they're going to walk a lot. It's going to be a lot of deep counts. So guys are throwing 120 pitches in 5 innings. Yeah, it really has changed the way the game is played.
Yeah, no question about that. And a guy asked me the other day, Ed, you'll get a kick out of this. I was taking a question and answer at a banquet somewhere. And the guy raised his hand. He said, let me ask you a question, Pete. I said, what's that? He said, what do you think you'd hit if you were playing today? And I thought for a moment. I said, maybe 195, 200. He said, wow. He said, pitching's really that good? I said, no, you dumb son of a bitch. I'm 81 years old.
I know. That's an old one, Pete, but it's always a good one.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, thanks so much. I got one more question for you, my friend.
No one will ever throw so hard you can't hit it.
Well, that's especially if it's down in the area where you can handle it.
A lot of guys throw those titty-high fastballs by you all day. but they're balls. They're balls. Don't swing at them.
Especially if you have an uppercut, launch angle,
Correct.
you got no shot at that.
No shot. No shot.
Hey, Pete, I'm going to ask you one
There's
more
a lot
question.
of guys like that today, Ed, because they're all trying to elevate. They're trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. You can't hit line drives out of the ballpark unless you're Judge or somebody like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're swinging as hard as you can and you're throwing every pitch as hard as you can, boy, there's going to be a shitload of walks. There's going to be a shitload of strikeouts, and that's what we got.
That's what we got. You're absolutely correct.
Hey, Pete, final question. Do you think you'll ever get in the Hall of Fame?
I don't like to think about that, Ed, because I'll probably be dead. I hate to say that, but I just chose the wrong vice, Ed. Gambling was the wrong vice. You know, you beat your wife, you're still going in the Hall of Fame. You're an alcoholic, you still go in the Hall of Fame. But if you gamble, and I know what happened in 1919 to the Black Sox scandal, I'm aware of that. I was wrong when I was betting on the Reds to win, betting on the Reds to win. That's how much confidence I had in my team and my teammates, the young players I had. I had so much confidence in them, I wanted to bet on them every night. Because that, to me, that was an edge. You know, whenever you're a gambler, you're always looking for an edge. And my edge was I had good players.
Yeah. Well, if you did get in,
it probably don't make no sense to you, but that was my philosophy.
Well, if you did get in while you were still alive, what would that mean to you as a person, as a player?
Well, it mean everything in the world, but it's getting less and less every year, Ed. Because when you're first eligible for the Hall of Fame, most of the time, your mom and your dad is still around.
Yeah.
Even your grandma is still around. But now, as every year goes by, I've been suspended since '89. How many years ago is that? That's 35, 36 years ago. So a lot of my fans are dying. A lot of my teammates are dying. Mm-hmm. And when you make the Hall of Fame, it's for your fans. It's for your teammates, because no one makes the Hall of Fame if you don't have great teammates.
Absolutely.
I had great teammates. And if I ever made the Hall of Fame, I would want Bench to be there. I would want Perez to be there. I would want Concepcion to be there. Morgan's already left us.
Already gone. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one guy that's not going to be there. But that's just my philosophy, and I could be wrong, but that's the way I think.
Well, Pete, I can't thank you enough for your valuable time, and I would encourage anybody, whether you're a novice fan or you're a 40-year guy like myself who was a player and a general manager, go on baseballreference.com and pull up Pete Rose's record and just see all the crooked numbers and the black highlighted numbers, but go down games played and at bats. I mean, it's amazing to have those kind of records. Second all time in doubles, a ton of triples, leading hits, most plate appearances, most at bats. That's incredible stuff. That stuff is sometimes more impressive than the other more highlighted stuff.
Pardon my French, Ed, but I got to leave you with what Ted Koziski, who I think was the best hitting coach ever, what he used to tell us. He'd say, Pete, see the fucking ball and hit the fucking ball hard somewhere. And that's all you try to do when you're in the battle.
That kind of sums it up.
Hit the ball hard somewhere.
Thanks so much, Pete. I really
Anytime, Ed. You're a good man. Take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you, my friend.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
To you.
Okay, buddy.